Harry, mate, you said you were popping out for milk. It's been 2 weeks.
I know, Jack. But now I'm back, and you know what it's time for?
It's Series 2, Episode 4 of
The
Football Natter. So what, Harry, is on this week's show?
Well, we're going to be talking about the Champions League round of 16 first leg, the Europa League first round, and that was the round of 32. And finally, as always, our previews for this weekend's Premier League games.
That sounds beautiful. So without further ado, let's get into it, and we'll start with the first game. The first game that's on the screen, which is Roma-Porto. So Roma won that game 2-1. Zaniolo with two absolute fantastic, well, I say fantastic goals, but the fact is he's 19 years old, making his way in the Champions League, and he is incredible, and he's going to be something for the future. Harry, you're a big Roma fan, so I'm going to let you talk about this one.
I'm a Roma fan, and yeah, Zaniolo is such a brilliant youth talent, and we've seen a lot of it in this area, how he's got brilliant skill, he's a natural finisher, as we saw in that game, right through the legs of the Porto player, and that was a great goal, wasn't it? And he had the instinct to tap in Dzeko's shot off the post. I just think his positioning and his awareness on the pitch is second to none, really, especially for a player of his age. And it's just credit to Roma, really. They got so many great youngsters, Kluivert, Zaniolo, Cengiz Ünder. They got so many, and it really looks like they are going to be a team to watch out for. I mean, last season, obviously, semi-finals, which was brilliant for them. Can they duplicate that performance, do you think?
I can't see Roma going all the way like they did last year this season. I just don't think they've got the good enough squad. I think losing Alisson, so obviously Liverpool was huge for them. I just don't see... I don't see Olsen really being that person that's in a later stage where, you know, the keepers become so important with big saves. I just can't see him stepping up. I mean, do you think Porto have a chance? Maybe. I mean, they are going to be obviously home in the second leg, so that's a big advantage to them. They have got the away goal, another big advantage. All they need is a goal, and they will go through as it stands. So, you know, maybe we might see a shock there and Roma head out. It is all still to play for. One which might not be able to play for is Tottenham-Dortmund. Tottenham obviously won 3-0 in the first leg at Wembley. Heung-min Son and Jan Vertonghen having absolute screamers of games. Absolutely incredible. What was maybe disappointing was how maybe non-influential Sancho was. You know, obviously, I mean, he had some real bright sparks and really showed quite a lot of people what he's all about, but only in stages, and he wasn't necessarily consistent throughout the whole game, which for me was quite disappointing because I thought this was Rijkaard's proper chance to say, look at me, you know, a big English team needs to buy me. Now, apparently, there's come up this week that Manchester United have actually made their top transfer target, so we might see something like that come about in the summer. But what do we think of Tottenham? they've got a chance now in the Premier League, maybe to even go top, depending on this weekend's results, which of course we'll preview later on. But you know, they've got a chance in the Champions League if they really want to focus on it. It was a very, very good performance considering they've been without Harry Kane and Dele Alli in the past kind of month almost. It was a properly professional performance. I was really, really impressed by Tottenham.
I think, to be honest, Tottenham are one of the most exciting teams in the Champions League. Last season, there was an unbelievably difficult group to get through with Dortmund and Real Madrid, and Tottenham came first and obviously got very unlucky against Juventus. And this season, the great escape out of their Champions League group with incredible win over Inter Milan, and then, of course, the very important result against Barcelona. And now 3-0 against Dortmund in the round of 16. Not many people saw it coming, but the wing play from Vertonghen at left wing back was unbelievable. He had one of the strongest games out of every player in the round of 16. Honestly, he won Player of the Week for the Champions League. And also Davinson Sanchez was an absolute rock at the back. Eriksen, of course, pulling the strings. It was just a really cohesive, well-worked Tottenham team. And Dortmund, they had 3 defensive midfielders playing at once. They were trying to create a wall to block the Tottenham attackers, but it just really didn't work for them because they were quite slow and they weren't able to build up the momentum needed to counter Tottenham's attacking threat, and they couldn't pierce through the defence either. So expect Tottenham to get through this one, definitely. Dortmund maybe going to have to try next season, but they need to focus on Bundesliga because they're starting to slip.
That's very true. They're I think it's as little as 3 points. Bayern have really caught them up with a great second half of the season. So Dortmund really need to, like you say, probably push on in Bundesliga to actually have a chance to end Bayern's consecutive wins in the league. So Man United PSG. PSG obviously winning 2-0. Very, very solid performance. I was especially impressed by Verratti in midfield. Very, very impressed. Do Man United have the ability to come back? I think they definitely do with the form that Pogba, Lingard and Rashford particularly are on. And Herrera is an unsung hero, I think, in that midfield. Since Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's come in, he's been absolutely incredible. He's completely... And we saw in the FA Cup when Manchester United won 2-0 away at Chelsea at Stamford Bridge. That late run into the box from the Pogba cross was incredible, just to be able to actually see that ball coming in and make the way into the box. Just a late run into the box, and it was a fantastic guarded header into the bottom corner. So I have really, really been impressed by him. If he can add more goals to his game, Manchester United are going to be some force now here in the second half of the season. You know, who says that they are not going to get top 4 easily? Top 3 maybe in the Premier League now. They have gone an absolutely fantastic run, and it's just going to make the Manchester United board, you know, have a harder decision in the summer to whether to actually keep Solskjaer on permanently or whether to bring in someone, a big name like Zidane. But in the Champions League specifically, it's going to take a big performance to win at the Parc des Princes. I don't think PSG will have Neymar back by then. I'm not sure. No. But obviously Mbappe is a huge player for them and could well decide the tie at the Parc des Princes in France. We will see. But moving on to Ajax Real Madrid. Real Madrid came away with a 2-1 win, but Ajax got a goal, so they've got a chance at the Bernabeu. Obviously, Real Madrid aren't necessarily the best this season. Asensio was quite impressive, really, actually, when he came on. How do you see this one going, really?
Well, to be completely honest, Ajax for a lot of the game were the better side, and obviously
they were really unlucky.
Yeah, Tagliafico had his goal ruled offside, and no, he just had his goal ruled out, and that was really unfortunate because I thought that Ajax would win this game actually to start with because they've been doing pretty well in Eredivisie. They've got some really strong young players in there, and we all know how inconsistent Real Madrid have been in La Liga this season. And to be honest, I feel bad for Ajax because I think that was really their chance. They had to put out a strong home performance and really keep their defence really strong because 2 away goals. Do you really think they're going to be able to recover from that? Because I don't expect so. Real Madrid, they're very well experienced. And, you know, as I say, they are inconsistent, so there's a chance. But, no, it's a problem for Ajax now. I expect Real Madrid to go through into the quarterfinals.
It's a fair assessment. I mean, I don't even know who Real Madrid's manager is now. I don't even know who he is. So, I think, whatever. If you do know who the manager is, I might as well plug it now. Email thefootballnatter@gmail.com. Of course, you can also email your suggestions, your opinions, your thoughts on anything we say. Please scrutinise us. You know, we need somebody to talk to us. Please, we're lonely. Anyway, Lyon Barcelona. Now that is one game I personally didn't think would finish 0-0 because Lyon have got, you know, they just seem to be able to counter-attack very, very well with Fekir and Dembele, especially after moving from Celtic. He's really hit some form in Ligue 1 this season, and Barcelona particularly, who I deemed way back in September, no, not September, way back in October or November in the podcast, who I predicted to be the winners of the Champions League. I still think they are going to be the winners. I think they've been fantastic this season in the league, particularly. Obviously, the slip of Real Madrid has obviously helped them gain that big advantage, but they are blowing teams out of the water. Messi is just incredible. Just incredible. Now that Ronaldo isn't in the league, I don't know where he's just stepped up a whole new level. Fantastic player this season. But we've also seen players like Coutinho actually hit some form consistently. Luis Suarez obviously still. They've kept Kevin Prince Boateng. I mean, they started him at striker in this game, and he didn't actually seem to be too bad. He wasn't too bad. Exactly, he does hold up the ball very well. So actually, that being 0-0, obviously Barcelona are going to be at home, so it's a good chance for them. But Lyon, away from home, I really wouldn't put it. I really wouldn't put them out of the water because they performed very, very well away at Manchester City in the group stages. So we could see a shock. We could see a shock, and we could see my favourite go out of the Champions League. What do you think?
I think it's more than possible now because although 0-0 at home may seem not enough for Lyon, there were some incredible performances there. Ndombele in the midfield, and also Mendy at left back. They had really strong games, especially defensively. They were really keeping it together for Lyon, and now they have got a decent chance because obviously the Nou Camp is a really intimidating stadium to go into. But honestly, we know that they've got the great counter-attacking football that is required to win a trophy like the Champions League. And although I don't think they will go the full way, I think it's more than possible to take out Barcelona. But as you did mention, Barcelona have been particularly strong this season. Messi has definitely stepped up. All it takes is a nice, strong, consistent performance from Barcelona in the second leg.
I think you're absolutely right there. So moving on to Liverpool-Bayern. Liverpool-Bayern. So that finished 0-0 as well. That was one game I thought out of all of the ties would not finish 0-0. I thought with Liverpool and their attacking threat and Bayern's poor defensive kind of setup in the past few games in the Bundesliga, where the fullbacks have kind of stayed too far forward, it just leaves Hummels and Schürrle exposed. I thought there was really going to be some goals, but tell you what was particularly disappointing for me was Salah. I didn't think he turned up. Mane, he's more I think he's just more selfish than anyone I've ever met. He gets in a really, really good position, and you just think, go on, pass it, but he doesn't. He tries to shoot, and even if he's on his weaker foot, when you know, against Neuer, who, even though he's not been in the best of form this season since he's come back from his injury, he's still one of the world's best. He's still one of the greatest, one of the original sweeper keepers. So, I thought, what is the point of you shooting with your left foot? Kimmich, I thought, marked him out of the game expertly well. I mean, Henderson, I thought, did really, really well to kind of break down the midfield play of Thiago, and I think maybe Goretzka was a big miss for Bayern, who he just brings something completely different. I was quite impressed by Gnabry, but I thought, considering they didn't have Van Dijk or Joe Gomez, that back two of Matip and Fabinho actually really held well, and that's probably a success for Liverpool in that sense, that they didn't concede against Lewandowski. And Fabinho didn't look too uncomfortable at centre-back, so I was quite impressed.
No, I think this season Fabinho has proven that he's just as good at centre-back as he is at defensive midfield, to be completely honest. Yeah, I did expect a lot more goals in this game, maybe a 2-2 or even a 3-3. But Bayern are a massive threat, as you said. Gnabry's really good in that wing, obviously the Arsenal outcast, and now he's proving his doubters wrong. But Liverpool, I don't know, I just don't think that they're going to be able to topple Bayern, because Bayern have had such a strong second half of the season. They've got the top players, and I think Liverpool really, it's in their best interest to focus on the Premier League at this point. Like, they are getting caught up with, and actually I still think Man City are going to win the Premier League. And I'm going to stick to my gun and say they might win the Champions League, but we'll talk more about that later. But for now, Liverpool, as you said, Mane needed to play a lot better in that game. His finishing wasn't up to standards, and it's going to be a real tough fight to win at the Allianz Stadium.
So, moving on to Atletico Juventus. So it finished Atletico 2, Juventus 0. I mean, Juventus just didn't show up really, did they? And if it wasn't for Szczesny making that fantastic fingertip save, it could have been even more embarrassing. And if it wasn't for VAR, which for me was overused, personally, I mean, the decisions it looked at, I think particularly the penalty and Morata's goal, right decisions, but I think it's used too often, and that's why I think managers should be given, like in tennis, that's why I think managers should be given a few challenges per half, 2 challenges per half, so 4 challenges over the whole game, to say, look, I want that reviewed. I mean, if it's an obvious decision, well then review it then. But I don't think it should be used for the silly things like, was that a throw-in, or exactly, was that offside by a fingernail? Nobody. That's when VAR shouldn't be used, because at the end of the day, it's football. There are going to be human error. That's the whole point of football and why everyone loves it, because it's such a high which is why it's because it's a high intensity football game. High intensity football. It's because it's such intense at such high speeds that you do get that split human error, which divides fans and divides opinion, and that's where an atmosphere comes from. That's the whole point of football. I think making everything so spot on, so perfect, just takes the whole idea of a atmospheric football game out of question. But But anyway, on to the actual game specifically. Atletico Madrid were very good. Juventus were poor. Ronaldo particularly just didn't show up. I thought he would show up against, obviously, one of his old rivals, but now he's 34 now. Is he finally slowing down and kind of changing that role as a player? I think he probably is. So we'll see where that goes. Obviously, back in Italy for Juventus in the second leg, they do have a chance. They do have a chance if they get a goal early on. We will see how that one plays out. But on to the last game, Schalke Manchester City, probably the best game out of the whole round. Manchester City winning 3-2 in the 90th minute thanks to a Raheem Sterling strike. It was a great ball from Edison as well. What a ball from Edison. But I think the goal of the game has to go to Sane. A 35-yard free kick smacked into the top corner. And it was a hard free kick in the sense that it was far out and he had to hit it with power, but it was quite central. It was quite central, so he had to hit it into one of the corners, and because the keeper could very much stay in the middle of his goal and have an equal chance each side, it had to be hit with conviction, and my God, did he hit it. Did he hit it well. Fantastic goal from him. Schalke, again, VAR used for penalties. Unlucky, I think, on Manchester City's chance on one of the penalties. I think the free kick that was taken, actually the player who the free kick was aimed for was offside, so maybe there should have been an offside flag called there. But the penalty was given anyway, so Schalke got two penalties, and they will come in handy definitely in the second leg. Again, if they get an early goal, the ties for anyone really. But again, Manchester City could be just probably play them off the park at home in the Etihad. We'll see, and maybe the Manchester City fans might actually turn up. Have you got any thoughts, Harry?
Yeah, just some final thoughts. I think Man City will destroy Schalke at home. I expect like a 3-0 kind of win. Now Schalke are going to win. No, I do expect a Man City victory, and quite a convincing one, because honestly, watching that game, listening to that game, at the back, Schalke were really shaky. I heard the commentators saying on numerous occasions, that defending was woeful, like they just weren't playing well enough at the back. And when you're in a competition to this scale, at this quality, you've got to have strong defenders. There are lots of teams in there with that, such as Tottenham, as we discussed, and Barcelona, obviously. And it's going to be really hard for Schalke. I expect City to go through. And yeah, as you said, what a goal from Sane. And with the Atletico Madrid game, I still think Juventus can win. It is all to play for. It just depends if certain players, Ronaldo, turn up.
We got it right there. It is all to play for, and we will see what the second leg brings. But moving on to the Europa League, everyone's second favourite European competition. And because there are 32 games, we're not going to talk about every single one, but we are going to pick out a few key ones which we believe are teams which could well have a chance of going through. So Sevilla went through 3-0 on aggregate. Obviously, big winners of the Europa League before. Obviously, under Unai Emery, they won it a couple of times, so they are very much kind of got a good history recently in the competition. Villarreal and Sporting. Villarreal go through 2-1 on aggregate. Again, the Spanish side not necessarily doing the greatest in La Liga, but maybe focusing on the Europa League, and could they maybe go all the way? We'll also focus on Valencia beating Celtic. Valencia, obviously, they dropped out of the Champions League into the Europa League. Could they go all the way and win the trophy? And obviously, Arsenal and Chelsea. Chelsea going through 5-1 on aggregate, so no worries there. But Arsenal coming behind against Bate to win 3-0 at home with the best centre-backs in the world, Mustafi and Socrates, getting 2 of the 3 goals. So we'll begin with Sevilla. What do you make of their chances going into the round of 16? Do you think they could go all the way?
Bit embarrassing, really, isn't it? Because I said I thought Lazio would win the Europa League. But when I did say that, Lazio were looking a lot stronger, and honestly, they've looked pretty weak ever since I made that. Well, what would you say? Ever since I made that prediction. Yeah, Sevilla could go all the way. They're just serial winners of the competition. I think they won it 2 or 3 times in a row under Emery. And you expect Sevilla to do it, really, don't you? I mean, I don't know. I'm not entirely convinced, because I think Valencia are looking very strong. And I think that Inter, they're there. So, and obviously the English teams are always a threat, despite Chelsea's mishaps, let's call it. But it's a good chance for Sevilla to win some silverware this season. So I think they've got a chance. Ben Yedder, he's a good player. They've got a few other strong individuals in that team.
Okay, moving on. Thank you for those thoughts, Harry. They were good. I mean, you can't really show off about your prediction skills anymore because that was horrendous. They got absolutely stonked. Okay, Valencia Celtic. I mean, it was always going to be a Valencia win. I mean, there's no doubt about that. Brendan Rodgers was never going to go anywhere with Celtic in any competition other than the Scottish Premiership because they are awful. Valencia with a very professional display. I was very impressed, actually. Soler in particular, obviously naturally a right mid, but playing in left of midfield along with Parejo. A very good midfielder for me. Very good midfielder. But Soler could well be in the Spanish squad come the Euros in 2020. I'm very, very impressed with him. Another player I'm also impressed with is Vas.
Yeah, I always.
Who is, 20, 21, I think? Not too old. Been there for a while, come through the youth ranks, and he's now making a very good impression on the first team stage. But obviously the veteran striker Kevin Gamero getting the goal. So yeah, I was impressed with Valencia. They could well go all the way. I mean, I'm not sure. I think I'm not sure where the other competition lies, other than maybe with Chelsea and Arsenal. But again, it's Arsenal, so, and it's also Chelsea, which we didn't think we'd be saying, considering their awful form in the Premier League. But you never know. We could well see a Valencia-Chelsea final.
And Jack, I'll just add one thing. It's bad when Celtic are only 10 points above Rangers. It must be bad. It's going wrong for Brendan Rodgers.
Okay, so Arsenal bait. Arsenal won 3-0. I mean, they should have been through 3-0 from the first leg, but embarrassing 1-0 defeat. We'll kind of call that a mishap for Arsenal. Unai Emery would not have been very happy, and it was a very good display in the second leg at the Emirates. Shame half of the fans came dressed as seats, but you never know. They might get a good turnout in the next round. At the end of the day, the Europa League is Arsenal's only way into the Champions League this season, because they're not going to get top four.
It's not good until the semi-finals.
You're right. Yeah, it's not good until the semi-finals. You're probably right there. And you never know. If Chelsea win it, you might see John Terry come in the full kit, even though he's never played him in it and lift the trophy. But we'll talk about Chelsea now quickly. Chelsea-Malmo, 3-0. Callum Hudson-Odoi having a fantastic performance. Why didn't he go to Bayern? He would have been so much better off. Sarri, just isn't going to put the trust in him in the Premier League. You can't let him play against Malmo in the Europa League, because that doesn't give him justice. He's such a good player. It was such a good, well-taken goal. He was fantastic all night. But Chelsea, obviously going through 5-1 on aggregate. I mean, they are obviously one of the biggest teams, strong contenders in the Europa League left now. You have still got good teams like Napoli, like Villarreal, like Krasnodar, still left in the competition. So we'll see. It's going to be a good round of 16. Obviously, the draw has just been made. There are some interesting fixtures. They're all pretty basic, really. If you would like to go see them, look them up, because I don't have them in front of me, so I couldn't tell you. I'm very sorry. So but yeah. Anyway, that was our very quick roundup of the Europa League. Let us know your thoughts. Email thefootballnatter@gmail.com, but we'll move on, because we're not going to go for the longest episode, just a short, quick, snappy one. I know you've probably missed us because we've been away for 2 weeks, but Harry went out to get milk, and it turned out he went for 2 weeks of a weekly shop as well. So you got lost in Aldi, did you?
Yeah, just a little bit.
Well, unlucky, mate. Ended up in Lidl.
And now I'm here.
And now you're back in the studio. Okay, so we will move on to our Premier League predictions. Now, there are 2 games actually going on right now, which I don't actually know. The last time we checked the scores, it was 2-1 West Ham and 1-0 Watford against Cardiff. So, we don't know what's happened. And we will go on to what we think the final scores are going to be, and then the predictions for Saturday's and Sunday's games. So I think it will probably end Cardiff 0, Watford 3. Watford have sustained their position in that top half of the table. They're going to look like they're going to definitely get top half of the table. I think they are just too good to finish anywhere. I don't see them like last season's where we've seen them drop off late on. I just don't see that this season. I think they are really going to push the top 6 all the way. Definitely. And maybe Everton are on the rise again. Maybe we are seeing an exciting end to the Premier League, specifically at the bottom and definitely at the top. But we'll move on to West Ham, Fulham. Fulham are in a lot of trouble, really, aren't they? A lot of trouble. We thought Huddersfield were in trouble, but Fulham, without a win in a long time, Ranieri just hasn't done it. We all thought maybe he'd be the man. You're right. It's not his fault. It wasn't his squad, and maybe just keeping Jukanovic just would have been the best option. Maybe if he had gone back down to the Championship, he probably would have just got them back up again. You never know. But I think it will probably finish West Ham 3, Fulham 2. We'll see how that one goes. Harry, what do you think of those? Well, what do you think of the finish results of tonight's games?
Well, I'm going to just stick with Cardiff 0, Watford 1, because we know that Cardiff have put out some decent performances, but Watford, they're really going to look to keep pressure on Wolves, because if they could get Europa League, how incredible would that be for the fans? Obviously, came up a few seasons ago, they've started to really establish themselves, even though they've been inconsistent. But if they manage to get that kind of position, 7th, maybe 8th place, how good would that be for Watford and their fans? Great. And then for West Ham, Fulham, obviously it was 2-1 to West Ham when I last checked, but I think it's going to finish 2-2. And it's a real problem for Fulham, because they were ahead, and how many times have we seen them give up winning positions this season? It's a problem. It was Ryan Babel who scored, and I really have been impressed by him since he's come back to the Premier League. I think he's been one of their best players, actually. But yeah, I expect them to probably equalise, because West Ham, also very inconsistent team. But Fulham, they're in trouble. I do expect them to go down, because I don't think they're going to quite be able to pull off an escape. However, they do have quality in that team. They just haven't been able to unleash it, and the defensive woes do continue.
Okay, moving on to Saturday's games. Burnley-Tottenham is the first one. Burnley have been in good form, and I think this fixture's probably come at the worst time for them, because they've actually been hitting some good, solid, consistent ground. Tom Heaton has been very, very good. And maybe we will see a shock. Maybe Burnley will draw to Tottenham. But yeah, I can't see it for me. Tottenham have done so well without Harry Kane and Dele Alli. Very, very well. Son has really stepped up to the plate. And defensively, they've just got stronger. Davinson Sanchez has hit a very good run of form at the right time going into the end of the season. And maybe Tottenham now have a chance to actually win the Premier League. Maybe this is going to be the closest they've come for a long while. They could well be in it if Manchester United beat Liverpool, which we will predict in a little bit, but it's going to be Tottenham 3, Burnley 0 for me.
We do know that Man City have taken some bad hits, such as against Newcastle, such as against Crystal Palace. We know that Liverpool have been on a downward spiral for a while now, of course, losing their 7-point lead over Manchester City. Is it time? Is it finally time for this Tottenham squad with some incredible players, especially at the back? Can I say, Vertonghen, Sanchez and Alderweireld all had incredible games recently. Is it time? It might be. They've still got enough games and they can definitely make up the points. And I think this is a perfect game for them, because Burnley have had a really weird season. No one expected this much struggle for them. And I do think they probably just about survived, but it could be really close for them. However, this game, as you said, is coming at a really bad time. Although they have started to get it back together, I think that Tottenham are going to come over and defeat them at their stadium. I'm going to go 4-0 to Spurs, because they don't need Kane. They don't need Ali at the moment to win. They're doing it, and Kane might make an appearance, obviously back in training, but I think whether he does or not, it's going to be a big win for Tottenham.
Okay, Bournemouth-Wolves. Now that is a big game. Wolves are obviously in incredible form. In Bournemouth, incredible form. Eddie Howe is keeping them up there for such a kind of small budget, and he spent what 20 something odd million on Lerma in the summer, but that is their biggest signing. Very good player, very good money actually for him, considering how much transfer prices have gone up recently. and he's really had a good impact, Lerma. I've actually really liked him. But it's all been on Callum Wilson and David Brooks. David Brooks has been one of the best buys probably for a Premier League team this season. What, £6.5 for him from Sheffield United? Incredible, absolutely incredible. And he's so young, so he's just going to get better. And watch out for him in the next couple of seasons. He could well be. I mean, I was going to say English squad, but I think he classes himself as Welsh now, which is unfortunate. But Declan Rice, before we move on, Declan Rice is classed himself as English. So, Bournemouth, Wolves, I think that's going to be 2-2 for me. I really find that hard to call. What do you think?
Yeah, obviously, David Brooks, brilliant signing. I really enjoy watching him play. He really has got it all, to be honest. He's got great technical ability, but we're talking about Wolves, who are definitely the best team ever to be promoted into the Premier League in history. Like, no doubt. I couldn't argue against that. They are so impressive. And I expect to win because obviously Bournemouth have, struggled now and again in the Premier League. They started much better than they have been in recent games, but Wolves have remained very strong. Obviously 7th place, only the 2 points above Watford, well, depending on the result tonight. I'm just going to have to go with the Wolves win, but I think that they will be really good going out. Obviously, Ivan Cavallero scoring the goal against Bristol to get them through in the FA Cup. I'm going to go 3-0 to Wolves.
It's a big shout, especially at the Vitality Stadium where Bournemouth have been really good this season. Newcastle Huddersfield. What a game at the bottom. It's hard to call because it's one of those games where Newcastle haven't been the greatest at St James's Park. Could let a lead slip and draw. Could let a lead slip completely and lose to Jan Seivert's Huddersfield Town, who have been awful. I mean, he's been trying to implement his new 4-3-3, but it's just not going to work this season. He's really got to go. He's really got to just take the relegation and just start again. Get rid of a lot. I think we're going to see a big squad shift with players that he actually wants to bring in, players which fit his system in the summer. So I just think they need to accept relegation and get that over with. Almiron, obviously, Newcastle fans have loved him already, and he's only played like a substitute appearance, but they love him already. I think he's going to be huge for them. I'm going to say for him to get the goal and a 1-0 Newcastle win.
Well, I know it's incredibly early to call this, but I don't even think Huddersfield will come up next season back to the Premier League, do you?
No.
Because if you watch their team shape, even under Seivert, and if you actually watch the link-up play between the players, especially between the midfielders and the forwards, it's just not good enough. They're just not creating good chances, and the chances that they do make are usually half chances. And I just think Huddersfield are really struggling. They won't stay up. I think everyone knows that now. They won't stay up. And Newcastle, as you mentioned, Almiron came in from the MLS, and he's strong. It seems like he's quite a strong player. Hasn't done too much yet because he hasn't really had the chance. But Newcastle need a win, really, because they are starting to get dragged into that relegation battle, and they're in the talks. But I don't think they're going to go down just yet, and I think it will be a win against Huddersfield, and I reckon Almiron might score. So I'm going to go 2-0 to Newcastle.
Okay, more confident than me for a Newcastle win. But we will move on to Leicester Palace. Obviously, Leicester have been in okay form. Probably not where they wanted to be. They probably did want to push for Europa League under Claude Puel. But they have been playing some very nice football. And we have seen some very good performances from certain individuals. Andre Gray, James Maddison, who I've loved as a kind of Englishman coming from the EFL. I've loved to see his rise into the Premier League. Jamie Vardy, he is getting older. They are eventually going to have to find a replacement for him. Ian Nacho hasn't necessarily stepped up to the plate completely yet. They are maybe in the summer going to have to look to find somebody to replace Jamie Vardy, long term. But Ricardo Pereira has been fantastic at right back this season. Scored a couple of screamers, and he may well score a screamer again. As I am going to predict a Leicester win, 2-0 win specifically, over Crystal Palace, and the troubles will continue for Roy Hodgson's side.
I think you're right. I think Leicester will have hoped for better, especially Europa League. I think that was probably the aim come the start of the season. And they've just not been good enough to achieve that. Really, they haven't, and it's been inconsistent. And it seems a lot of the players aren't happy under Puel, namely star striker Jamie Vardy. He's just not been able to make enough impact because he's not got a good relationship with the manager, and obviously he doesn't see him in his style of play. But it's Crystal Palace, and they're the same. You never know what Crystal Palace are going to get. Is it going to be the one that beat Man City, or is it going to be the one that loses like 3-0 to Huddersfield at home? Who knows? I don't know. I think Leicester will have to do some business in the summer. Obviously, they brought in Tielemans on loan, and they might want to make that permanent, depending on how he does go. But I do think Pereira has probably been one of the best right-backs in the league, up there with Wan-Bissaka and Alexander-Arnold for me. But Leicester, I think they've got to win this, really. It's going to be a 2-1 win for them, I think.
Okay, moving on to Arsenal-Southampton. Big game for Southampton away at the Emirates. One which they could well win. You know, I wouldn't put it past Ralph Hasenhüttl, or Wreck-It Ralph. I would not put it past him to get a win. Valery, the young winger for Southampton, has just signed a new contract for them, so that's great news for them. He's been very, very impressive under Big Ralph. Unai Emery, obviously, good 3-0 win that we've already talked about against Bate. Southampton are going to obviously pose a much bigger threat to them. We could see a shock. You never know. Danny Ings or Charlie Austin could well pop up with a goal. I am going to say 1-1 for me, and a big point away at the Emirates for Southampton.
Let's take it back to the first game. Southampton at home at St Mary's against Arsenal. Now, for everyone who watched this game, it was incredible. It was a 3-2 win to Southampton, and Big Ralph, Wreck-It Ralph, just had a managerial masterclass against the Gunners. And it was brilliant. And do you know what? I expected again, because Southampton have been good. And they haven't even got enough credit, in my opinion, for how good they've been. And Arsenal, I don't care if they won 3-0 at Bato Borisov, because they're not good enough. But Southampton, on the other hand, they have got it in them to win this game. And I'm going to say they will win this game. Expect goals from the likes of Nathan Redmond. Expect great performances from the likes of Valery. 2-1 to Southampton.
Okay, big game of Sunday. Manchester United, Liverpool. Biggest game. Probably one of the biggest games in this run-in to the end of the season, because it could decide everything. Manchester United obviously want to secure a position in the Champions League. Liverpool wants to secure a position back at the top of the Premier League. How do you see this one going? Because I really don't know how to call this, because in the Premier League, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is obviously unbeaten, with winning every game other than drawing to Burnley. So, I really don't know. It depends It depends whether the Liverpool that played against Bayern turns up, you know, the one which couldn't attack for love of your money, or whether the one which turns up which completely destroyed teams earlier on in the season, winning 4-5-0. Or are we going to see the Manchester United which drew against Burnley, the one which didn't turn up for half the game, which I think against a team like Liverpool, it really isn't going to work in their favours? Or are we going to see the team like Manchester United that turned up in the FA Cup last week against Chelsea, the one which was incredible from start to finish, all over the pitch? It's going to be interesting. I am going to predict a Liverpool win, a 1-0 win, a shy 1-0 win. Obviously, it's a big game in terms of the history, big game in terms of this season, and it could well determine the future weeks. Liverpool will not want to be left chasing Manchester City, who have won 12 out of their last 13 games, I believe. They have been incredible. How do you see this one going?
Well, Mohamed Salah called to his teammates for them to win, 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 in his exact words. And they really need to win this game. This is crucial for them. They've got both Tottenham and Man City clipping at their heels. Obviously, Man City first, having played an extra game. Liverpool will obviously feel like they are in a good position, and they have been doing very well overall. However, they have let their big lead slip, and that is classic Liverpool. And I'm going to be honest, I think it's going to be really hard to regain that first place spot consistently towards the end of the season. And I'm not going to say it's impossible, but I don't think it's incredibly likely. And Man United, wow, they've got incredible momentum. Obviously, that 2-0 loss to PSG was unfortunate, and they didn't play the best. Obviously, Pogba picked up by Verratti on multiple occasions, but he made a big comeback against Chelsea and did have a good game. And Herrera, brilliant. Unsung hero, as you said, he was everywhere on the pitch. And it just seems like the team is working together well. They've got a great chance. And Liverpool, they've been on a downward spiral. I think it's time for Solskjaer to really show what he's made of once again. Man United 2, Liverpool 1.
That is a big, big prediction, and we leave the podcast with big endings, as Harry has just done there. Do you think the same as Harry? He's predicted a Manchester United win. I've predicted a Liverpool win. Who do you agree with? It better be me. That's all I'm saying. Email thefootballnatter@gmail.com. Link is obviously in the description. You can catch the latest 3 episodes on Spotify, iTunes and SoundCloud. Catch up on all episodes on YouTube. And, of course, tune in next week because we're going to have another cracker, another screamer. Do not miss it. Harry, you better not pop out for milk this time. We will see you next week for Series 2, Episode 5 of The Football Natter. But until then, it's goodbye from Harry. It's goodbye from me. Goodbye.